I am the true daughter of the Celine family, who was lost to the outside world. In my senior year of university, I was brought back. As soon as I stepped into the Celine family villa and hadn't even set my luggage down, the fake daughter Palealoha saw me and immediately reddened her eyes. I know you don't like me, sister. Since you're back, I'll move out right now. Stop talking nonsense. This is your home. My mother lovingly held her, casting me a glance full of slight displeasure. My younger brother Kale and pointed his finger at me and angrily shouted. I only recognize Karine as my sister. You country bumpkin. Get out. Faced with Kalen's rude outburst, my biological father only muttered a few indifferent words. Then, what at Omosai? He started to earnestly educate me. Celine, you need to be understanding and get along well with your brother and sister. For the sake of the Celine family's reputation and Karine's name. Let's just say you're our adopted daughter to the outside world. From biological daughter to adopted daughter. They thought I would be upset, shout, and make a scene. But to their surprise, I just nodded calmly. All right. The living room fell dead silent. Everyone stared at me in disbelief. They didn't expect me to accept the adopted daughter status so calmly. Inside, I couldn't help but laugh coldly. I didn't care about their so-called love. I just wanted the city's household registration to secure a public sector job as a fresh graduate. The room was eerily quiet. Karine's tears hung on her lashes, stuck between falling and staying, her face frozen. Kalen's mouth hung open, looking like a duck with its neck squeezed. Even my biological mother, still holding Karine, forgot to pat her back. My wealthy father, who was used to storms, had a fleeting look of surprise that he couldn't hide. They thought I would cry, throw a tantrum, and scream about the unfairness. But they never thought I would accept being called an adopted daughter so easily and calmly. In the end, it was my father, Celine, who reacted first. He cleared his throat, and the awkwardness on his face quickly vanished. Looking at me, his voice carried a compensatory tone, as though bestowing a favor. Celine, you are so understanding. I'm very glad. Now that you're back, we'll treat you well at home. Tell me, do you have any other requests? As long as it's reasonable, we'll do it. Here it was. I had been waiting for this exact sentence. I lifted my eyes, fixing my gaze on his face. Yes. When can my household registration be transferred here? The air froze for a second. Kalen suddenly jumped up, his finger almost jabbing into my face. I knew it. You country bumpkin. You're scheming. Agreeing to be an adopted daughter was a lie. You just want to squeeze into our family's household registration. Playing this retreat to advance game? Who are you trying to fool? Karine immediately shrank further into my mother's arms. She started sobbing quietly, as if I had made an extremely cruel request. Celine's mother patted her back, her eyes now more displeased with me. Celine, you're just back. Why the hurry? We'll talk about the household registration later. Celine's father didn't respond immediately. His expression was awkward, his eyes scanning my face several times. Though he didn't say it outright, his thoughts were the same as Kalen's. The coldness in my heart solidified into ice. I had expected this kind of treatment when I heard that the Celine family chose to overlook Karine's biological parents' responsibility just to protect the fake daughter. But the reason I still came back was for the city's household registration. With that, plus my status as a fresh graduate, I could land a public sector job easily. But they wouldn't even give me that. In over 20 years of my life, they had neither provided money nor effort. And now, even my only request was to be brushed off. This family was great at playing the game of empty-handed profiteering. Taking a deep breath, I forced myself to calm down. I knew this was not the time for confrontation. With that thought, I managed to put on a faint, forced smile and sighed. I didn't mean it like that. It's just that after that family abandoned me, my household registration has been stuck at the orphanage in another city. But I'm already 18. I should have moved it by now. I just don't know where to transfer it to. After spending so many years in the orphanage, I had become very adept at using others' empathy to maximize my own benefits. As expected, Seeing my show of vulnerability, Celine's mother's eyes reddened, a flash of pity crossing her face. Celine. Seeing this, Corinne panicked, immediately pulling at her mother's sleeve and crying. Mom. It's all my fault. I took my sister's place. I made her suffer so much. Corinne sobbed, her face a picture of innocence, drawing Celine's mother's attention away from me. Celine's mother comforted her, her words full of pity. Nonsense. It has nothing to do with you. Ah. It's all fate. There's nothing anyone can do about it. Celine. Don't blame Corinne. She's a victim too. Corinne buried her face in her mother's arms, sniffling softly, but her eyes flickered with a barely perceptible challenge and smugness as she looked at me. If it weren't for the household registration, I might have laughed. A victim? A victim, who has enjoyed over 20 years of riches and honor? I'd love to be a victim like that. Not once did they mention Corinne's human trafficking parents, who had sold her for a profit. When Corinne cried, Kaylin jumped up again. You country bumpkin. Jinx. Ever since you came, my sister has cried so many times. All because of you. You. Enough. My father was getting irritated. He waved his hand, as though swatting away a fly. All right. Stop crying. I know about the household registration. I'll have Assistant Wang handle it as soon as possible. It was done. I felt a surge of joy in my heart. I silently calculated how long it would take for the household registration to be transferred. It shouldn't delay my exam registration next month. Father. Why? Kaylin still wanted to say something, but he was cut off by Celine's father, who was growing impatient, fed up with their drama. I mentioned wanting to rest. Sitting in the car for so long had exhausted me. More importantly, I still hadn't finished today's exam prep. Celine's mother called a servant. Jiang Ma. Take her to rest. Jiang Ma scanned me up and down, her gaze filled with unmasked contempt. I picked up my somewhat worn suitcase and followed her. As we reached the second floor, she paused in front of a bedroom, looking at the luxurious, princess-style decor inside. I felt a pang of discomfort. It was so extravagant. Not at all suited to me. What if, during the political review, someone discovered I had stayed in such a luxurious room? It could impact my political future. Before I could say anything, Corinne suddenly appeared. A forced smile appeared on her pale face, her voice choked with emotion. If you like this room, sister, then I'll give it to you. This room has the best sunlight. It was decorated by Mom and Dad for me, and I've lived here since I was born. Although I'm really reluctant. As long as you're happy. So this was Corinne's room. Just as I was about to refuse, Kaylin charged at me like a mad dog. He kicked my suitcase over. Celine. Are you out of your mind? Are you really going to take my sister's room? She has trouble sleeping. If she moves out of this room, she won't be able to rest properly. What are you scheming? I don't want to. But Kaylin was deaf to my words, ignoring my explanations. He kept yelling. I knew it. You have bad intentions. Now it's the room. What are you going to take next? Hearing the commotion, Celine's mother came up. When she understood what had happened, her eyes were filled with disappointment as she looked at me. Celine. This is Corinne's room. She's lived here for many years. It's just a room. Do you really have to fight her for it? Enough. At the sound of my shout, everyone froze. I shot a displeased look at Kaylin. Your sister came out of the room and stopped in front of me, saying she wanted to give it to me. I didn't even have a chance to speak. I then turned my gaze to Corinne. What you like, what you care about, I'm not interested in. You don't have to always act like the world owes you something. Besides, if we're talking about who the room belongs to, wasn't it originally prepared by Kaylin and her mother for your unborn biological daughter? By the order of things, there's no talk of giving it. My words made Corinne's face go pale in an instant. Her tears hung on her lashes, caught in a frozen moment as if the pause button had been pressed. Kaylin's neck flushed with rage. His fists clenched so tightly they cracked, and it looked like he was about to lunge at me. Celine's mother, caught in a mix of pity for Corinne and guilt toward me, appeared utterly flustered. I regretted my words immediately. I had lowered my IQ for a moment there. Being misunderstood by a few words wouldn't cost me anything. Why bother explaining to them? I came back solely for the household registration to make it easier to take the civil service exam. Was I really hoping for non-existent family affection and fairness? I could have finished an entire set of test questions by now instead of wasting time here. Celine's father's voice came from the staircase. Commanding and stern. What's all this noise? What's going on now? Before Corinne could start crying, Kaylen was yelling like a madman. I turned directly to Celine's father. Our family has such a big house. And this is the only room? Celine's father immediately understood what had happened and glared at Zhang Ma. Hasn't the young lady's room been prepared yet? Zhang Ma, frightened, didn't dare speak. Seeing Corinne's desperate eyes, tears started streaming down her face. Dad, it's not my sister's fault. I wanted to give the room to her. I couldn't be bothered with her performance. I made my request clear. I don't need such a big room. Is there a smaller guest room? The quieter, the better. I don't mind if it's a little more isolated. Celine's father personally led me to a small room on the third floor, near his study. This room is usually unoccupied. Stay here. The room was sparsely furnished. A bed, a desk, a wardrobe, white walls, wooden floors clean and cold. But I was very satisfied. It was perfect for studying. Quiet. No distractions. Perfect. I closed the door behind me. Locked it. The faint sounds of conversation downstairs faded away. I walked to the desk, placed my suitcase, and opened it. Inside, there were mostly books and printed exam papers. I pulled out the study materials one by one, neatly stacking them on the desk. I sighed in relief. Corinne's whole retreat to advanced strategy, with her moral manipulation and tight logic, was like a complex, high-scoring question in the civil service exam. Indeed, real-life scenarios make the best test questions. It looks like I've been too focused on theory when I practice. I've lacked practical experience. Tonight, I'll need to practice extra hard to full sets of civil service exam questions. I won't sleep until I finish them. In the following days, aside from eating and going to the bathroom, I barely left the room. All my time was spent on the civil service exam and the essay section. For me, eating was just a necessary part of maintaining my energy and study momentum. At dinner one evening, the table was full of exquisite dishes. I ate in silence, my mind still replaying the geometry reasoning problem I had gotten wrong that afternoon. Celine? Celine's mother called me. I didn't hear her. Still lost in the thought of the rotating angle, she raised her voice. With clear displeasure. Celine. I snapped back to reality. Still a little dazed, Kalen immediately seized the opportunity, slamming his chopsticks onto his bowl. Country bumpkin. Always a country bumpkin. Even during dinner. You're spaced out. No manners at all. Looks like your orphanage didn't just teach you how to beg. It didn't teach you how to eat properly at a table. I tightened my grip on the chopsticks. No matter what they said about me, I could endure. But I couldn't stand them slandering the orphanage. Though it was poor, the headmaster and teachers had done their best to give us warmth and education. I stared directly at Kalen, my voice dripping with sarcasm. Don't speak while eating. Don't speak before sleeping. Am I the rude one for staying quiet? Or is it you who has no manners? Throwing your chopsticks and shouting during dinner? The orphanage at least taught me to stand on my own feet. Unlike some people who are 18 and still rely on others and spew nonsense. Kalen was completely enraged. You're asking for death. I'll kill you. You lowly country bumpkin. Kalen. Celine's father slammed his hand on the table, his face livid. Sit down. What's wrong with you? Corinne immediately played the role of the understanding one, soothing Kalen. Dad. Don't be angry. My little brother just cares about his sister. Sister. How can you say such things to him? Our family should eat happily together. We don't have all these rules. Mom and Dad taught us to love each other. We shouldn't fight and make them worry. A few words, and everything was pinned on me. Subtly, petting so stealthily. They blamed me for causing trouble. What a master at changing the narrative and throwing dirt. If she were doing logic problems, she'd surely get a high score. Celine's mother quickly stepped in to mediate. Enough, Celine. Your mother just wanted to ask. What are your plans after graduation? How about going abroad for further studies? As a young woman, having a good degree will make it easier to talk about marriage in the future. I rubbed my ear, almost thinking I had misheard. How could a degree be tied to marriage? After studying so hard for over 10 years. The final value of it was to be judged based on marriage talks. Celine's father spoke with the tone of someone deciding my future. Well, let your mother help you find an agency to pick a school. Money isn't a problem. Just pick an easy major that's easy to graduate from. When you find a partner, you'll have something to show for it. Kaylin immediately mocked. Go ahead. Laugh secretly. You've never seen the world. Have you? You haven't even been abroad. Have you? Never even been on a plane. I bet. Ignoring Kaylin's taunts, I calmly put down my chopsticks. No need to bother. I've already signed up for the civil service exam in Haas High. I'm not planning to go abroad. For a moment, the entire dining room fell silent. Kaylin's mocking expression froze. Corinne's face turned slightly sinister. Celine's mother looked at me, utterly incredulous. Celine's father's hand froze midrin holding his chopsticks. And for the first time, he looked at me with genuine scrutiny, from head to toe. Civil service? Kaylin was the first to shout out, his voice dripping with sarcasm. Do you know how hard it is to pass Haas High's civil service exam? With your background from that third-rate university, you don't even have the qualifications to sign up. I met his and his parents' skeptical gazes and said clearly, each word measured. I'm from Jade University. With a double major in computer science and law. A full-time undergraduate. Graduating this year. I have all the necessary certificates. My 2 majors are in high-demand fields on the city's exam list this year. I've already selected a position and registered for it. The written test is next week. Celine's father's chopsticks clinked lightly on the table, dropping with a soft sound. At Jade University? Computer science? He repeated, his astonishment completely unmasked. Kaylin's mouth hung open, his smirk turning into something comical. Corinne lowered her head, tightly twisting her napkin. I glanced at them, slightly exasperated. Did you all not do any background checks before bringing me back? The living room fell even quieter. I immediately understood. It wasn't that they didn't do it, but they simply didn't care. They probably thought anyone brought back from that place would be of no worth and that a random identity would suffice. My father snapped out of it and shot Kaylin a furious look. Kaylin held his head high, but his aura weakened, and he didn't dare speak. Corinne's face went pale, her fingers twisting even tighter. My father cleared his throat, trying to salvage the situation. Well, I didn't expect you could get into a Jade under such conditions. That's impressive. His words sounded dry, without much sincerity, but the shock was real. That night, I went downstairs to get a glass of water. As I passed the study, the door wasn't fully closed, and I could hear muffled scolding. How could you mess this up? Didn't you even check which school she's attending? You made me look like a fool today. Kaylin retorted angrily. How would I know? She looks like such a country bumpkin. I thought she'd barely get into some crappy second-tier school. Just threw together some documents for her. Who cares where she studied? So what if she got into a good university? She's just a small-town desk-taker. A bookworm. My father choked with anger, but paused before he stopped himself from further scolding. Enough. Use your brain next time. I held the glass of water, calmly walking back upstairs. It didn't matter. What they thought had nothing to do with me. Later, I found out Corinne had secretly checked my academic information online. But she tricked Kaylin, telling him I was just a regular undergraduate. This blunder was entirely her doing. On the day of the written test, I packed my admission ticket and pen bag and went downstairs. The living room was empty. I walked to the garage, and there wasn't a single car in sight. Zhang Ma was polishing a bass. Not even looking up. Don't bother looking. Young master took all the cars out early this morning. Mr. and Mrs. took another car to work. I checked the time. There was still an hour before the exam started. It was impossible to make it on foot from the Celine family villa on the mountain. I ran to the entrance of the villa district. The security guard coldly told me no taxis would come up. The only option was to walk down. Kalen had done this on purpose. He wanted me to miss the exam. To lose my qualifications. I clenched my fists, forcing myself to stay calm. I pulled out my phone, quickly searching for nearby vehicles. I tried calling Celine's father, hoping for his help, but sadly, his phone kept ringing without an answer. The minutes ticked by. Sweat soaked my back. At that moment, a black sedan rolled down from the mountain. It looked expensive. I couldn't afford to care anymore. I dashed into the road, spreading my arms to stop the car. The car screeched to a halt, less than half a meter away from me. The driver rolled down the window, yelling angrily, "Are you trying to get yourself killed?" The back window also rolled down, and a woman in her 40s, dressed in a neat suit, looked at me with a furrowed brow. I immediately ran to her window, holding up my ID and admission ticket, speaking quickly. "Sorry. I'm in a hurry for a civil service exam. It's at Ha's High Experimental High. All the cars at home are gone. And I can't get a taxi. Please. Can you give me a ride? My name is Celine." The woman glanced at my admission ticket, then at my anxious face. Her gaze paused on my name for a second. "Get in." Her voice was calm, but there was an undeniable authority in it. I opened the car door and sat inside, thanking her repeatedly. The car drove smoothly toward the exam site. I finally arrived 10 minutes before the exam started. "Thank you." I thanked her again before getting out of the car. The woman gave a slight nod. "Go ahead and take the exam." After the exam, I returned to the villa, utterly exhausted. As soon as I stepped in, I heard Kalen's exaggerated laughter. "Hey. You're back? We thought you'd get lost and miss the exam." Corinne sat on the sofa, sipping a cup of flower tea. A faint, mocking smile lingered at the corner of her lips. "Don't listen to my brother. How did the exam go, sister?" Her tone was laced with gloating, as though she was sure I had failed. I ignored them and started heading upstairs to rest. Kalen, however, stepped in front of me, his posture smug. "Hey. Don't rush upstairs. We have an important guest today. Our family's most accomplished aunt, who now holds a significant position in a key department. You, on the other hand, are nobody. Don't make a fool of yourself." Corinne also stepped forward, her voice soft and gentle, but laced with boastfulness. "Yes, Padishar, sister. Auntie has very high standards. Only a select few can catch her eye. You should head back to your room, so you don't cause a scene. If you upset Auntie, Dad will be really angry." Kalen puffed up with pride. "That's right. Among the entire family, only my sister gets any special attention from Auntie. Some frogs think that just because they put on clothes, they're human, unaware of their own limits." As he was speaking, the study door opened. Celine's father and mother were smiling obsequiously, escorting a woman out. I blinked in surprise, rooted to the spot. It was the same woman who had driven me to the exam earlier this morning. Kale Ann and Corinne immediately put on their sweetest expressions and greeted in unison. "Auntie, heading so still sai." "Hello." The woman merely glanced at them briefly, indifferent. Her gaze then landed on me, and she spoke. "Celine? How did your exam go?" I hurried over, replying with gratitude. "Thank you for asking, Auntie. It's over now. And it went all right. I'm so grateful to you for your help this morning." My parents froze, looking between me and Auntie. My dad quickly forced a smile and introduced. "Cousin, Lavadalo Sai. Have you two already met? This is Celine. She's our adopted daughter." Auntie shot him a cold glance, not picking up on the adopted daughter comment. She nodded at me, her tone soft. "No need to thank me. Focus on your interview preparations. And I look forward to hearing good news from you." She turned to my father, her tone abruptly businesslike. Non-compliance is non-compliance. It doesn't matter how many times you approach me. I won't bend the rules. She turned and walked away without another word. My father's face was a mix of green and pale. After seeing Auntie off, he immediately confronted me. How do you know your aunt? I told him the truth. I was almost late for the exam this morning. So I stopped her car. My dad immediately lost his temper, turning to glare at the butler. What's going on? Where's the car? The butler glanced nervously at Kaylin. Young master took the car. Kaylin shrank back, not daring to speak. My mom quickly stepped in to defend him. Why are you scolding the child? It was probably just a coincidence. The car was used up. It's a small thing. Really? I didn't want to watch this farce. So I turned and went upstairs. That evening, while I was in my room studying, Celine's father knocked and came in. He wore an awkward smile and placed a car key on my desk. I was taken aback. He gave a stiff laugh. Celine, I know you've had a hard day. This car is for you. It'll make going out easier. I glanced at the key. I don't know how to drive. I don't have a license. Celine's father was stunned for a moment, realizing that he didn't know me as well as he thought, and felt awkward. He rubbed his hands together and sat beside me, testing the waters. Celine, you and your aunt seem to have quite the connection. Since you've been back, you haven't visited any of the relatives. How about this, tomorrow? I'll prepare some gifts. And we can visit Auntie. I instantly understood his intentions. The visit was just a pretext. What he really wanted was for me to speak on his behalf with Auntie. I set my pen down and interrupted him directly. Didn't you hear what Auntie said today? You know her temperament better than I do. Non-compliance is non-compliance. Using connections doesn't work. Instead of wasting time here, it would be better to fix the non-compliant areas. Celine's father's smile faded, and his face darkened. You? How can you be so ungrateful? Can't you help the family a little? Kaylin was right. You really can't be raised. He stood up angrily, slammed the door behind him, and stormed out. I shook my head, speechless. I pulled out the note that Auntie had discreetly handed me before she left. It contained her contact information. I sent her a thank you message and then returned to my studies. I was very grateful for Auntie's help today. Without her, I might have missed the exam altogether. But I wouldn't ask for her help on other matters. When there's a vast gap in status, excessive interaction becomes a burden for both sides. In this life, the only person you can't really rely on is yourself. As graduation approached, the pressure of my thesis defense weighed on me. At dinner one day, Celine's mother unexpectedly served me some food. Celine, how's the thesis preparation going? I didn't look up. It's fine. She hesitated before speaking again. Well, you are part of the Celine family now. With graduation coming up, do you have any plans? I stayed silent, waiting for her to continue. She hesitated again before saying, well, you haven't been in a relationship, and you're of age now. I found a good match for you. A branch of the Jing family. Though he's a little older, in his 30s, and has been married before. His wealth and status make him the kind of man many young girls dream of marrying. I set my chopsticks down, understanding the situation. They were planning to use me as a pawn for their own gain. I spoke coldly. I refuse. My father slammed his fist on the table. Celine, how can you be so ungrateful? What's wrong with contributing to the family? Kaylin immediately jumped in. Exactly. Ungrateful little thing. Unworthy of even being in the Jing family's presence. I'll tell you. If it weren't for the Celine family, with your upbringing, you wouldn't even be able to carry shoes for the Jing family. I sneered, my gaze sweeping over them. If the Jing family is so great, why not send Corinne to marry him? Isn't she your favorite daughter? If that doesn't work, Kaylin could go. I see he's good at pleasing people. The table went silent in an instant. Corinne's face turned pale, while Kaylin, enraged, began cursing. You little bitch. You shameless little brat. Country bumpkin. He cursed our ancestors, spitting venom as he did. I just waited for him to finish cursing, then calmly replied, I share the same ancestors as you. Kaylin fell silent. Seeing Kaylin at a disadvantage, Karine immediately, with red eyes, said, "Sister, I know you don't like me. And you don't like the Celine family. But now we're a family. And we should help each other. Besides, your parents are only doing this for your own good. A girl has to get married eventually. As your older sister, marrying into the Jing family is a great choice. This is a win-win situation. Why are you so opposed to it? If my parents need me, I'll marry into the Jing family without hesitation. Because I'm their daughter. And I'm from the Celine family." Karine's few words moved both Celine's father and mother to tears. At the same time, she stood high on her moral pedestal, criticizing and condemning me. She was quite generous. But the one being sacrificed was me. Anyone can speak with such magnanimity. I smiled lightly. "Since you're so understanding and sensible, here's the deal first. Give me back my identity. Then you can marry into the Jing family. Is that okay?" Karine was rendered speechless. Her face turned pale. And she struggled to find words. She certainly didn't want to marry that old man from the Jing family's branch. She was going to marry one of the heirs from those prestigious families. Kaylin, ever the protector of his sister, immediately jumped in to accuse me. "What is he? That decrepit Jing family doesn't deserve my sister to marry into them? Oh, so the Jing family is a poor, fallen one. They knew it was a furnace. But still, they tried to push me into it." After Kaylin's tirade, he crossed his arms and glared at me, sneering. "Celine, you need to be realistic. Don't think just because you passed the exam, you'll definitely succeed. Ha is High has so many outstanding people. You, a country bumpkin, aren't even worth considering. I don't care. Celine, you must marry into the Jing family. Tomorrow now. Right now. I'm sending you to them." Kaylin started shouting as he came toward me, reaching for my arm. I was about to fight back. Ding Lane. Celine's father's phone rang. He glanced at the screen and immediately put on a flattering expression. "It's my cousin." Celine's mother, excited, asked, "Could it be that my cousin knows Karine won the dance competition? Is she calling to congratulate her?" Kaylin grabbed Karine's hand. Excited. "Definitely." As he spoke, he gave me a smug glance, with a pointed remark. "Not like some unpresentable country bumpkin who only knows how to study and has no idea about the ways of the world." Karine, looking pleased but pretending to be modest, responded, "Oh no, no. It's not a big deal. It wasn't even an important competition. Why would Auntie go through all this trouble just for that?" I rolled my eyes internally as I ate. A dance competition hosted by a school, and the Celine family was a sponsor. If Karine hadn't won, it would have been strange. Celine's mother happily told Celine's father to put the call on speakerphone. Celine's father answered with a respectful, flattering tone. "Hello. Cousin. What's your order?" Karine also spoke in a sickeningly sweet voice. "Hello. Auntie. Thank you for always caring about me. Tomorrow, Dad and I will come visit you to express our gratitude for your love and care." There was a long pause on the other end of the phone. Then a clear, calm voice asked, "Who are you?" Karine's face visibly paled, but she didn't dare show any displeasure. The ad continued, "Is Celine at home?" The dining room fell silent, with only the sound of my bowl and chopsticks clinking. Everyone turned to look at me. Karine's hateful gaze was fixed on me. She wanted to burn a hole through me with her eyes. Celine's father hurriedly answered, "Yes, Adin so wide sigh. Yes, Ada. She's here." The aunt's voice came through the phone. "The results are out. She passed the written exam. She's first place. More than 10 points ahead of second. She's excellent. I'm looking forward to her interview performance." After finishing, the aunt hung up the phone. At the same time, I received a message with my exam results. First place in the written exam. Qualified for the interview. The room was utterly silent. Even the sound of breathing stopped. Karine stared at me in disbelief. If looks could kill, I would have died hundreds of times by now. Kaylin was the first to react, sneering. "TCH. So what if you passed the written exam? Even if you pass, you're just a lousy civil servant. What's the big deal? Smack. He didn't finish his sentence before Celine's father slapped him across the face. Kalen covered his face, feeling wronged. Dad. Celine's father ignored him and instead looked at my phone, reading the results and the department I had applied to. His eyes lit up. His tone was full of astonishment and admiration. You applied to this department? This is one of the best departments out there. It has a huge amount of power. Celine. You really have skills. You're making your father proud. The anger on his face turned to delight. He changed his attitude completely, no longer dismissive of me, and turned to Kalen and Karine, saying, Look at your sister. You should learn from her. She's truly exceptional. No wonder she's my real daughter. His words made Karine's face turn pale. This time, her eyes really turned red. But she forced a smile and answered sweetly. Okay, Dad. My brother and I will learn from sister. Sister is amazing. But I saw her hands under the table clenched tightly, her nails nearly digging into her flesh. On graduation day, the campus was bustling with activity. Parents held flowers. Students wore their caps and gowns for photos. I stood alone in a corner, calm and composed. My phone buzzed. Karine posted on her moments a grid of 9 pictures, where she wore an exaggerated gown, flanked by Celine's father, Celine's mother, and Kalen, all smiling happily. The caption read, Happy graduation. Thanks to my parents and brother for their love. Love you all forever. Heart. I remembered that this morning, Celine's father had a regretful expression, saying he couldn't attend my graduation because of business at work. Celine's mother had been even more straightforward. Celine. You've always been so independent. Karine needs me more. I've attended all her graduations since she was little. If I don't go this time, she'll be upset. I showed no concern. People's hearts are always biased. Just like how, compared to the orphanage where I grew up, this biological mother of mine didn't matter. Just then, let out a low sigh. Kalen's call came in. Hello? Celine. Did you see my sister's post? TCH. How pathetic. Why is it so quiet over there? No one is celebrating with you? Let me tell you. Don't think just because you passed the civil service exam, you're something great. Mom and Dad's favorite is still my sister. Oh, but by the way, I forgot you're close to the orphanage. But can they even afford to buy a train ticket to visit you? I hung up directly. From a distance, the director and the children from the orphanage, dressed in clean but faded clothes, anxiously waved at me. When they saw me, their eyes brightened, and they waved eagerly. I quickly walked over. Celine. Sister. Happy graduation. The children held out colorful paper flowers they had made themselves, eagerly pushing them towards me. The director had tears in her eyes as she took my hand. Good child. Congratulations on your graduation. We didn't embarrass you. Did we? I held her tightly. Of course not. Thank you for coming. With all of you here, my graduation is complete. I looked at their familiar faces. How is everyone? Are you all getting used to it? A slightly older child excitedly said. We're good. We're good. Celine. It's our first time flying. The clouds from up above were so beautiful. The director mother wiped her eyes. You child. It wasn't easy earning money part-time. But you keep sending it to the orphanage. These children being able to continue their education, and coming to High City for a visit, all thanks to you. I gently patted the heads of the younger children. Director mother. This is what I should do. In the future, I learn even more, so that all my younger siblings can study with peace of mind. We took a photo together. I was in my graduation robe, surrounded by the children and director mother, all of us smiling sincerely. This warm moment was captured by an alumni who happened to pass by. I proudly told everyone that these were the family members who had been with me. They were selfless and excellent, especially the director mother who raised us orphans. And they were my most beloved family. In the Celine family's living room, the atmosphere was strange. Karine's eyes were red and swollen. Whispering to Kalen on the sofa, If sister really passes the exam, will our parents still care about us? The company might even give everything to her. Kaylan's face changed dramatically. She dares? She's just an adopted daughter. Kareen's tears fell. Recently, Mom and Dad keep praising her. Little brother. I'm scared. After all, she's the biological daughter of our parents. If they stop liking me, what should I do? Kaylan scoffed, gritting his teeth. Don't worry, sis. Celine will pass. A few days later, Kareen told Celine's parents that she wanted to go on the graduation trip with me. She then affectionately put her arm around me. Sister, let's go skiing abroad. You've been working hard lately. Let's relax a bit. We'll come back before your interview. We'll wear matching outfits. Won't that look great? Celine's mother also smiled and agreed. All right. I'll take you shopping later. I didn't want to go on a trip with Kareen. She had almost caused me to be late for the written exam. If Auntie hadn't appeared to help, I would have missed the exam for sure. Now, if we went abroad and the flight was delayed, I'd be stranded there, no one would be able to help. I calmly pulled away from her arm. No, thank you. I still want to study a bit more. Kareen wasn't giving up. Sister. Didn't you hear? You need to relax before an interview to do well. Kaylan joined in to persuade me. Exactly. What's the point of cramming at the last minute? Sis invited you. Don't be so ungrateful. Besides, someone like you from the countryside must have never skied before. I looked at them with disdain. Just skiing? Who hasn't done that? The orphanage was in the north. And every winter, we skied. What's the difference between the snow abroad and the snow at home? Is the moon brighter abroad? Het. Our country is vast and beautiful. The mountains and rivers are the most stunning. This blind admiration for foreign things isn't right. I looked at Celine's father. Auntie said I could contact her if I needed help. Celine's father was pleasantly surprised. Really? Your aunt has been in touch with you privately? I nodded. Celine's father waved his hand. Celine, you stay home and study. Don't let anyone disturb you. He turned to Kareen. Kareen, we'll keep you company. Kareen's eyes flashed with reluctance, but she managed a forced smile. Thank you, Dad and Mom. Sister, we'll bring you gifts. I sighed with relief. They left. Kaylan, however, didn't leave with them. When he saw me, he smiled with malicious intent. Celine, Dad said I should learn from you. Since that's the case, I'll stay behind and observe your study techniques closely. If the entire Celine family is down to just the two of us, how do you feel about spending the days with me? As expected, Kaylan started causing trouble. Every day, Edding fulfilled my obsession. He brought a group of his friends home, cranked up the music, and they yelled, played basketball, and smashed things in the living room. I put on my noise-canceling headphones and calmly studied my interview materials. After all, in the orphanage, after lights out, I would read in the hallway by the faint light. My concentration was sharp, and this noise was nothing. When he saw I wasn't reacting, he grew more insistent, deliberately dribbling the ball by my door and kicking it. I still didn't pay attention. Kaylan only dared to make small noises to disturb me. But now that I had Auntie's favor, he didn't have the guts to cross the line and truly harass me. At the Celine family, I ate, drank, and was well cared for by the butler and servants. My interview preparation proceeded smoothly. After half a month of playing around, Kaylan finally couldn't keep it up and quieted down. I thought Kaylan would stop there. Until the morning of the interview. I had finished preparing and was ready to leave. I twisted the door handle, it wouldn't budge. The door was locked from the outside. Kaylan's triumphant voice came from outside. Celine, don't bother. Just stay inside. Someone like you wants to go to an interview? Dream on. You're only fit to stay in the gutter. Then, let out a low sigh. The sound of him whistling as he walked away echoed. I stood behind the door with no expression on my face. I didn't even raise my voice. If someone falls into the same pit twice, they're just foolish. After the previous experience with the written exam, I had already expected him to try this. I thought about whether I should book a hotel in advance. but quickly rejected the idea. With Kalen's crazy behavior, if he caused a scene at the hotel downstairs, there'd be no way to predict it. It was better to turn the tables. I walked to the wardrobe, took out a chainsaw I had hidden earlier, and switched it on. Where our buzz zzz. The harsh noise rang out, sparks flying. The heavy wooden door lock, along with the surrounding wood, was neatly sawed off. Clang! The lock fell to the floor. I pushed open the unstable door and stepped out. At the same time, I sent the recording of Kalen's words to the WeChat group and tagged Celine's dad and mom. Then, let out a low sigh. I calmly dusted off the wood chips from my clothes, walked out, and got into the car my aunt had arranged for me. Heading to the interview site, there was no suspense. First place in the written exam. First place in the interview. Overall, first place. I had succeeded. When the admission notice arrived, my dad was pacing excitedly in the study. Great. Great. My daughter is amazing. Throw a banquet. It has to be a big one. I want everyone to know that you're my biological daughter. Jensen's daughter. My mom frowned. What about Karine? How do we explain it to her? She's only just gotten better emotionally. Explain what? My dad interrupted her impatiently. She's a fake. How can she compare to Celine? What kind of institution did Celine get into? It'll bring me so much face. How much have we spent on Karine over the years? What do we get in return? She only got into university because we donated money, and now we have to arrange for her to join the family business. Of course. Even with all the money we spent, that country bumpkin bloodline can't be transformed into real upper-class society. The only thing Karine has going for her is that she's obedient. She'll be useful for marriage alliances in the future. Kalen jumped up to defend Karine. Dad. Are you crazy? Celine's nothing but a scheming bitch. Karine is. Slap. With Celine's mother's shocked cry. Celine's dad backhanded Kale and hard across the face. The force of it made Kale stumble. Celine's dad's face turned an angry shade of blue. Brat. How dare you speak like that? I haven't even settled the issue with you locking the door. From now on, all your cards are suspended. No pocket money for you. Kalen, holding his face, stared at Celine's dad in disbelief. The conversation from the study could be heard through the closed door. Karine stood in the corner, her head lowered, her fingers digging into her palm, her eyes bloodshot, as though blood would drip from them. Her fists were clenched, her teeth grinding as she glared at me. Are you satisfied now? Was all this scheming just to take away my parents, my identity, everything that belongs to me? I rolled my eyes silently. What's it to me? Your identity? Your identity is what your biological parents stole from me, swapping my life for it. Besides, I have no interest in the fake familial love of the Celine family. My experiences growing up, the selfless love from the orphanage mother, the help from my homeland and the loving people in society, they made me realize what healthy love really is. I really don't care about the Celine family's love because it's worthless. During the political review phase, the staff came for the investigation, and everything went smoothly. A few days later, I received a notification. The political review had not passed. Reason identity in question, possibly concealing my true background, with potential moral risks. When I received the news, I was stunned, unable to believe it. I didn't understand which part had gone wrong. As I was pondering, I heard Kale's sarcastic remarks. Ah, someone's failed at trying to show off. I bet it's because your character is so bad that they saw through you and didn't accept you. A toad will always be a toad, no matter how well dressed. Celine's mom tried to console me. Could there have been a mistake? Should we inquire about it? Celine's dad, deeply disappointed, blamed me. Inquire about what? That's a government agency. They keep everything confidential. I say it's because you have no social skills. You offended someone. Otherwise, why would they reject you? Such a disgrace. I was so happy for nothing. Celine's dad left angrily, as though the person who had been so kind and attentive to me just a few days ago was someone else entirely. After a moment of calm, I immediately filed for a review. The staff responsible for the review was initially vague. But in the end, it was my aunt who stepped in to inquire. The truth came to light. Someone had anonymously reported me, claiming that my origins are unclear, and my adopted status was fabricated by the Celine family out of sympathy. That my true identity is lowly, morally corrupt, and that I was trying to infiltrate the public service. In the review office, I opened the file in front of the auditors, laying out the documents one by one. The DNA paternity test, the police investigation report from back then, the orphanage's adoption certificate and my complete growth record, my academic records, transcripts, and award certificates, and the recording where Celine's dad had arranged for me to be adopted as a daughter for Corinne's sake and the family's reputation. I spoke clearly and calmly. These are all my proof materials. My bloodline comes from the Celine family, but my upbringing and character were cultivated by the orphanage and the state. The Celine family gave me the adopted status out of their own internal family considerations, which I respect, but I have never profited from it. All my application information is truthful and accurate. Corinne had out a wow sigh. The one who reported me. His direct personal interests at stake. Her claims are completely fabricated. The chain of evidence was complete, the logic clear. After carefully reviewing the materials, the auditors exchanged glances and nodded. A kind lady gently patted my shoulder. Little sister, none of this is your fault. Despite everything, you've remained true to yourself and worked hard, which is admirable. Don't worry. No one will bully you anymore. I smiled and thanked her. After higher level review, the final decision was, there were no issues with my political review. The procedure was completed, and the public announcement was made. I, Celine, officially joined the workforce. When Celine's dad learned that I had successfully secured the position, he went wild with joy. He rented the most luxurious banquet hall in High and to a grand recognition and celebration banquet. The guests flooded in, the spotlights flashing. My dad stood on the stage, his face beaming, holding a microphone, his words spilling out with excitement. My daughter Celine, well, she's not that talented. Just took the exam casually and got first place in both the written exam and the interview. Bringing honor to the Celine family. Today, I officially announce, Celine is my biological daughter. Please take good care of her in the future. He gestured for me to come up to the stage. I walked up in my simple professional outfit and took the microphone. Celine's dad and mom below looked at me with eager anticipation, waiting for me to deliver a touching speech. The reporters' cameras focused on me. I took a deep breath, scanned the room calmly, and spoke. Thank you all for coming today. I've applied for and will be participating in the Poverty Area Aid Program, organized by the government. Next week, I will be heading to a rural town in the Four Rivers provinces, where I lived as a child, for 2 years of grassroots service work. The audience erupted in an instant. Celine's father's smile froze. Celine's mother was stunned. Kaylen wore a look that said, "Are you crazy?" Corinne, after the initial shock, flashed a sly grin with a hint of mockery in her eyes. A reporter immediately asked, Celine, right? You've just landed an enviable position. Why choose to go to the tough grassroots instead? Is this a decision made by the Celine family? I faced the camera, my voice firm. No, this is my personal choice. I grew up in an orphanage. It's because of the teachers at the orphanage, the country's support, the countless kind-hearted ordinary people, and the quiet efforts of grassroots workers that I survived and had the chance to study. I paused, feeling a lump in my throat. But my gaze grew even brighter. I've worked hard to study and become a civil servant, not to secure a stable job or pursue some so-called glamorous family honor. My goal has always been clear: to give back to society, to give back to the land that raised me. I want to bring the advanced economic and technological experiences of High City to the places that need them the most. To pave a path for children like me. A path that leads to light. The scene was quiet for a few seconds, before erupting in warm applause. Many guests nodded in emotional agreement. Reporters frantically recorded and took photos. Celine's father stood next to me, his face alternating between red and pale, completely stunned. The next day, heading to Fieldwand session. The local media headlined, "True heiress abandons glamorous life. Chooses grassroots work." The original intention of the civil servant girl, from orphanage to civil servant. She chooses to return. The report detailed the Celine family's true and false heiress story, as well as my intention to help impoverished areas. The power of netizens was limitless. They quickly uncovered Corinne's anonymous report against me and angrily denounced her as both venomous and foolish. Soon after, more came to light about Corinne's history of bullying classmates and forcing them to transfer during high school. The public outcry was deafening. The stock price of the Celine family business dropped. Celine's father was furious. He felt humiliated and worried about his wealth. In front of the whole family, he shouted at Corinne, "Get out! Get out of the Celine family. I don't want a disgraceful daughter like you." Corinne cried uncontrollably, begging Celine's mother and Kaylin. Celine's mother softened, wanting to intercede, but one sharp look from my father silenced her. Kaylin tried to say something. "Father. And you." Celine's father pointed at him. "Useless fool. Keep talking and you can leave too." In the end, Corinne was kicked out of the Celine family, receiving only a small amount of cash and nothing else. Kaylin hated me deeply. "Are you happy now that you've gotten rid of my sister?" I gave him a disdainful look. "Happy about what? Corinne was kicked out by your father. Not me. What does it have to do with me?" However, later I heard that Kaylin and Celine's mother found a place for Corinne to stay, supporting her outside. I shrugged. Indifferent. I had already made my escape, and it was no longer my problem. On the day I left for the rural area, I packed my simple luggage. Celine's mother stood at my door, her eyes slightly red. "Celine, the conditions there are tough. How about I take you there?" "No. Thank you." I zipped up my suitcase. "That's where I came from." I dragged my suitcase downstairs. Outside, a black government car was parked. The window rolled down, revealing the calm face of my aunt. "Get in." Celine's father and mother were startled when they saw her, quickly rushing over to try to get on her good side. But my aunt didn't even look at them. Turning directly to my father. "Jensen, the family has asked me to notify you that someone will be taking over the management of the High City branch. You are to cooperate." My father's face turned ashen. "Cousin. What? What does this mean?" My aunt's tone remained even. "The family feels that your ability and character are insufficient to independently manage the branch. It's time for some self-reflection." She gestured for me to get in the car, but my father stopped her. "Celine, sai. Please. Speak up for me. Your father has done this for you. He even kicked Corinne out. We are your biological parents after all." I turned back, smiling lightly. Biological parents who treat me as an adopted daughter? Or biological parents who forced me into a marriage against my will? "You kicked Corinne out because she caused you financial loss. Not because of me. Have I ever called you mom and dad since I came back? Thank you for giving me life. But the family had originally planned to completely cut you out of the branch. I begged my aunt to let you keep your full shares and some management rights. So, we're square now." The car smoothly drove away from the Celine family villa, leaving behind the glamour and chaos. The inside of the car was silent. After a while, my aunt spoke. Her voice quiet but clear and firm. "Celine, remember this. As women, we are born to be mountains, not streams. I want to look down on the mundane valleys from the peak of the world. I was born to be a hero, not a weed. I stand on the shoulders of giants and scorn the petty cowards beneath me." She turned her head, her gaze sharp and profound as she looked at me. "The rug beneath your feet is yours to choose. The sky above your head is yours to bear. The path you've chosen is good." I looked out the window at the rapidly retreating scenery. The vast mountains and rivers. The future bright with promise. My journey was just beginning. The plane malfunctioned, and one of the parachutes in the cabin was defective. In this critical moment, Adrian handed me the last parachute. I landed safely. But my half-sister Lily, the illegitimate child, was killed in the crash. After our rescue, Adrian still chose to honor his engagement to me, and we held a grand wedding. However, for 6 years, he harbored hatred, believing I was the one responsible for Lily's death. He treated me like an enemy, and I endured a life worse than death for those 6 years. Finally, having fulfilled my obsession, when it was time for our divorce, he chose to perish with me at the spot where Lily had died. When I opened my eyes again, I found myself back on the day the plane had crashed. This time, I decided to leave the chance of survival to the person he loved the most. By the time I realized I had been reborn, the plane had already started to shake. The crew members were distributing parachutes, but when they reached Lily and me, they found one parachute was faulty. After a few moments of hesitation, Adrian handed me the last parachute. "Grace, this parachute is for you." Seeing the pained expression on Adrian's face as he handed me the last parachute, I took a step back and refused, saying, "No need. Adrian, save Lily first." This time, I refused to take on another life. I wanted to live for myself. Upon hearing my words, Adrian immediately breathed a sigh of relief. He gave me a deep look, and his frown finally relaxed, his voice filled with a hint of joy. He quickly pulled Lily to his side and placed the last parachute on her back. "Grace, having fulfilled my sigh. You are my fiancée, and I should have saved you first, but since you've asked me to save Lily first, I will not disappoint your request." With those words, he immediately grabbed Lily and jumped out of the plane's door. Not even a final glance was cast in my direction, as if he feared I might change my mind. How ridiculous. Did he really think everyone was like him? It was his own choice. Yet after being saved, he regretted it. In the previous life, he gave me the last parachute and stayed by my side after I jumped, leaving Lily alone on the plane. But even though we contacted the rescue team immediately after landing safely, at an altitude of 10,000 meters, when the plane crashed, Lily was still lost without a trace. When Adrian first heard of Lily's death, he had no reaction at all, not even a word of condolence toward me. He merely spoke indifferently. She was just an insignificant person. He even managed to handle all of Lily's funeral affairs alone, without so much as a hint of sadness. The only request he made was that Lily not be buried alone. Since her family had a plot in their ancestral graveyard, he decided she could be buried there. I readily agreed, even asking him if we should delay our wedding. But do you know what he said? He took my hand, his eyes full of affection, and spoke softly. "Grace, marrying you is my only wish in this life. You wouldn't want to delay our wedding just because of some insignificant outsider, would you?" Only later did I learn that it was because of this insignificant outsider that he wanted to marry me as soon as possible and torture me for the rest of my life. He wanted me to atone for Lily's death, but was it my choice that he had to make? Did I force him to choose me? No. Then what does Lily's death have to do with me? So, in this life, I gave the chance of survival to the person he loved most. He should be grateful to me. To watching their determined backs as they jumped, I immediately began to figure out how to save myself. After all, this time, I couldn't be sure that Adrian would remember to call for help after he was safe. Because across 2 lifetimes, Adrian's only concern had always been my half-sister, Lily. In the last life, although there was little hope, he immediately contacted the rescue team once he reached an area with signal. But this time, it was Lily who got the parachute that meant survival. So, I no longer expected him to contact the rescue team immediately after landing. If he didn't immediately announce that I was dead after landing, I would thank my lucky stars. After all, the person he loved most across 2 lifetimes was Lily. In the previous life, I only learned it after we married that Adrian and Lily had known each other long before. They were both adopted into their families because of being illegitimate children, and they had formed a bond, vowing to always be together. Even our engagement had been because I was the legitimate heiress of the Lily family. All of their family's wealth would eventually be mine. So, even though Adrian loved Lily deeply across 2 lifetimes, he still chose to save me for the Lily family's wealth. But in the last life, Adrian deeply regretted saving me for the Lily family's sake. Now, I had made the decision for him again. and he should be thankful to me. Watching their figures fade into the distance, I immediately ran to the cockpit. In the last life, under Adrian's guidance, I began to slowly believe the crash had happened because of me. That Lily's death was my fault, and that I had taken Lily's chance. So, I later specifically learned how to fly and even got a pilot's license. Watching countless simulations of the crash, I consulted many experts. But every time I showed them the simulation, their responses surprised me. So many times, I had hoped to go back to this very day. Now that my dream had come true, I was filled with excitement, based on my experience in the previous life. I fastened my seatbelt and began to control the plane's descent slowly. After all, the reason the plane had crashed in the first place was because the Lily and Adrian families were both hoping to win the project in City A. And this plane had never truly been in trouble. It was just that today's crew had been hired by both families, deliberately causing a mishap to manipulate the situation. In distributing the parachutes, they had intentionally damaged one, aiming to affect the psychological state of both families in order to secure the City A project. But now that I had returned, I wouldn't let the tragedy from the last life happen again. So, sitting in the cockpit, I skillfully reopened the throttle. Taking control of the joystick and pedals, the engine roared back to life, and the plane, which had been plummeting at high speed, gradually halted its descent. There were even faint signs of it lifting. As I controlled the aircraft, the body of the plane began to stabilize. However, after the earlier descent, the altitude was no longer enough to reach the airport. An emergency landing was inevitable. Fortunately, heading southwestly. Below us were not tall buildings but endless mountains. I slowly guided the plane downward, watching as it swept over the trees on the mountain, knocking them all down before finally settling into a valley between two peaks. Stepping out of the cockpit and standing back on solid ground, I felt as though I had been reborn. Yet, the place where I had landed was not only desolate but also without signal. In reality, there wasn't a single bar of service. After several failed attempts to dial emergency services, I decided to take matters into my own hands. Armed with only the remaining supplies from the plane, I started walking toward the foot of the mountain, though the path was treacherous. After only a few steps, wild grass had already scratched my body in several places. Looking at the blood trickling from my ankle, I couldn't be bothered to wipe it away and pressed on toward the mountain base. Finally, I spotted a figure on a nearby trail and shouted at him. "Help! Wait! Please help me!" He heard me. He turned. But the moment he faced me, I froze in place. "Daniel. Brother?" Daniel's brows immediately furrowed upon seeing me. He strode toward me, and upon noticing the injuries on my body, a barely noticeable emotion flashed in his eyes. "What happened? How did you end up here alone?" I explained the situation, and he sighed deeply after hearing it. "You're lucky to be alive. I'll take you somewhere to bandage your wounds." "Okay." I had expected him to support me, but instead, he lifted me effortlessly into his arms and carried me toward the car at the base of the mountain. I leaned against his chest, feeling the steady beat of his strong heart. A faint blush crept onto my cheeks without my realizing. Embarrassed, I spoke up. "Daniel. Brother. Maybe you can put me down. I can walk on my own." But Daniel only held me tighter. "The grass is thick here. You might hurt your feet again." I gave in and allowed him to carry me to the car, where he gently set me in the seat. He reached under the seat for a small first aid kit, took out some alcohol, and began to clean my wounds with careful tenderness. "Does it hurt?" "No." As I watched his concerned gaze, I clenched his arm with my right hand, trying my best not to let the tears brimming in my eyes fall. I recalled the past life when I had just married Adrian. There was a company gathering, and people around us kept toasting. I was worried that he might drink too much, so I urged him to take it easy. He suddenly flew into a rage, and in front of everyone, he pushed me into the champagne tower. The glasses atop it tumbled and shattered on the floor as I fell among the shards of glass, the pieces embedding into my skin. Blood mixed with the spilled champagne, and I cried out in pain. With the help of some employees, I managed to stand up, gazing at him in disbelief. Yet there was no compassion in his eyes. His voice was cold as he spoke. Does it hurt? It should. Lily suffered 1,000 times worse than you. 1,000,000 times worse. If it weren't for you. If you hadn't stolen her parachute, she wouldn't have died. Grace. This is all because of you. I stood there in front of everyone, accepting his accusations, letting him trample me into the dirt. It was from that moment that I realized he had been deeply in love with Lily all along. Marrying me was just a way to claim the family fortune. I laughed out loud at him, as if he were a joke. Adrian, do you really think all of this is my fault? The plane was sabotaged by your rivals, and they deliberately withheld a parachute. You're not blaming them but blaming me. You're nothing but a coward. After saying this, I turned and left, going to the hospital to treat my wounds alone. It was from that moment that my relationship with Adrian froze. He began to belittle me at every opportunity. But now, my brother, who had grown up with me, was afraid I would feel pain and held me with such gentleness. I took a deep breath, trying to keep my voice steady. Thank you, Daniel. Brother. Suddenly, Daniel looked up, holding my ankle in one hand. His gaze was serious as he looked at me. Grace. You and Yen Ting might not be a good match, but the marriage agreement between the families can still continue. I looked at him in disbelief. Daniel. Brother. What do you mean? He suddenly withdrew his hand, and instead, he slipped my shoes back on. Not continuing with the topic. Never mind. Shall I take you home? I didn't want to go home. My parents had an arranged marriage for business reasons. And after I was born, they each found their true loves. Though they both agreed to leave me their wealth, neither of them cared for me emotionally. As for Adrian, after we married in my previous life, he never once introduced me in any formal setting. He never touched me. And whenever others asked about me, he would deride me with disdain. He even cut off my dividends, my shares, and my living allowance after they took over the family businesses. So, seeing Daniel carefully tending to my wounds, I couldn't resist pulling at his sleeve and pouting. I don't want to go home. Can I stay with you for a few days? When he didn't respond, I used my most innocent gaze to look up at him, playing the pitiful card. In the past life, he left for overseas soon after, and our interactions were few. But when he found out I was divorcing, he returned without hesitation to help me. So, whether in this life or the previous one, he had always been someone who helped me. Seeing me look at him with such a pleading expression, Daniel suddenly lowered his head, his burning gaze locking onto mine. The heat of his breath grazed my ear. Are you sure? Staying with me will come at a price. He suddenly stepped closer, and instinctively, I took a step back. Yet I could still smell his distinct cedar scent, making me feel a little dizzy. Yes, cut in fulfilled wide session. Any price. Really? Really? I fixed my gaze on him resolutely. But then he suddenly smiled. For a brief moment, the atmosphere became somewhat ambiguous, and I almost thought we were about to kiss. However, he quickly stepped back and ruffled my hair. Remember what you said. But in the end, I still returned home. The car carried me along. But as we passed a gas station, I was holding his hand, playfully asking for ice cream. When we bumped into Adrian and his rescue team. Grace. Is it really you? Are you all right? When Adrian saw me, a flash of disbelief crossed his eyes, quickly followed by joy. I merely gave him a cold glance, not letting go of Daniel's hand. What could happen to me? Adrian stared at me, as if unable to believe that I had survived the fall from thousands of meters up. But behind her, Lily's eyes subtly shifted to Daniel, standing behind me, before she directly stepped in front of Adrian and spoke. Grace. Was it Daniel who saved you? How did you survive from such a height? And by such a coincidence? Me, Daniel? Did you two already know each other? What was she implying? Did she think I orchestrated all of this? And you knew Daniel was competing with Adrian for the family inheritance. Yet you happened to come out of the woods together. Grace, heading to Feldwand Session. Do you dare to say that none of this has anything to do with you? I took a deep breath and turned to face Lily. In my previous life, Though her body was never found, I was still deeply guilty. Moreover, even though she was only a few months younger than me, I always saw her as my younger sister. Now, it seemed that she didn't view me as a real sister. Seeing that Lily was about to press further, I couldn't hold back any longer. I walked swiftly to her side, and in the midst of her accusatory gaze, I slapped her hard across the face. Slap! Lily immediately covered her face, staring at me in disbelief. And even Adrian was looking at me with shock in his eyes. I casually blew at the non-existent dust on my hand. The world seemed to fall silent. And it felt so good. Then, what animal sigh? Under the astonished gazes of everyone, I raised my hand and looked toward the police officer who had just arrived. Officer, I want to report that she's slandering me. And just like that, we were all taken to the police station. Lily reported that Daniel and I had conspired to cause the accident, while I told the police that Lily was framing us. In the ensuing tangle of claims, we were all brought to the station. While waiting for the police interrogation, Lily continued to stare at me, as if trying to get some useful information out of me. Grace, having fulfilled my sigh. We're half-siblings. Adrian is your fiancé, and you're heartlessly trying to kill us. I looked down at my moon-white nails, avoiding her gaze, and spoke coldly. Do you have any evidence for what you're saying? You should know better than anyone the consequences of slander. I immediately lifted my head and coldly met her eyes. Lily, have you forgotten what happened to the last person who slandered me? Back in high school, someone jealous of my grades spread rumors that I only topped the class by cheating. The rumors escalated, and eventually, my real parents found out. They reported the offenders to the police, and they were all arrested. Some of them protested, claiming they were manipulated by others. But as the police dug deeper, they all changed their stories and admitted it was their own doing. Hearing this, Lily's face immediately turned pale, and she stood frozen, not daring to speak further. But Adrian, standing nearby, was furious at my words, his face turning dark. He pulled Lily behind him and glared at me with displeasure. Grace, what do you mean by that? The people who started the rumors about you have already been caught. Stop using that to threaten Lily. She was just expressing her thoughts. Do you really need to overreact like this? I looked at him coldly, my expression emotionless. You're so certain. Does that mean you were the one who orchestrated things against me in the past? Adrian's face instantly paled, but his years of business experience allowed him to quickly regain his composure. His expression dark and as he stared at me. Grace, speak with evidence. I couldn't help but laugh at him. So now you know about evidence. You. Adrian was livid, his face turning an even darker shade of red. He looked at me with a low voice, clearly about to say more. But Daniel had already walked out of the interrogation room, and upon seeing this, he immediately positioned himself in front of me, exuding an undeniable air of authority. Are you planning to take action? I stood behind Daniel, watching him with a playful expression. Adrian seemed so furious that he was almost out of control, glaring at him with a mix of anger and frustration. Brother, I'm her fiancé. Really? Daniel deliberately turned toward me, his eyes shifting from a stern pressure to a softness so tender it seemed like it could melt anyone. Is he your fiancé? I immediately shook my head, quickly replying, no, of course not. Daniel chuckled softly, his voice laced with charm, and his casual, relaxed demeanor only added to the effect. His eyes held a thousand and unspoken emotions. I couldn't see anything but his lips. It must be his charm. How else could I not resist standing on my tiptoes to kiss him? Adrian, seeing this scene, felt as though there were sheep nibbling on his head. His face immediately dark and several shades, and he clenched his wrist, the bones cracking under the pressure. His eyes narrowed, full of malice. He was about to erupt when the police called me in for my statement. He had no choice but to hold back. When we finally finished with the interrogation, it was already evening. I held Daniel's hand as we slowly walked out the front door of the station. Just as we were about to get into Daniel's car, Adrian suddenly spoke up. Grace, canning fulfilled and sigh. Your parents already know about what happened today. They're really worried about you. And they're at your villa. Shouldn't you go back to check on them? I listened to him. I couldn't help but laugh. They were so worried I wouldn't come back. So worried about me. They never even bothered to call and check on me. Just stayed at home waiting for me. They were really that concerned about me. And yet, they let out a low sigh. They had already found their Aunt Rue loves. If it weren't for the prior agreement to leave their fortune to me, they probably wouldn't have even bothered with the inheritance. Perhaps it was thinking back to my childhood that made me bitterly smile. When I was little, I didn't understand why they wanted to divorce. Why they didn't want to see me. So, in order to meet them, I tried so hard. So very hard. To do well in school. Just so that when they signed my papers, they might feel even the slightest joy. And give me a shred of love. But even this trivial love was far less than what they gave their later children. So, I eventually stopped expecting. I would celebrate my own achievements. Like when I scored first in a test. Or when I bought a small cake for myself on my birthday to celebrate getting a year older. But the way I grew up. When I met Adrian in university. It all felt different. Our families had been close for years. And the engagement had long been set. Though we had never settled on a match. After my father divorced my mother, he married Lily's mother and then, after marrying her, thought he had found his true love. Adrian's father had also fathered Adrian with another woman after Daniel was born. Although Adrian was a bastard, being a boy, he was taken in and raised in the family home. Originally, having fulfilled the engagement was supposed to be between Daniel and me. But when I was in university, Adrian began to aggressively pursue me. Having never felt love before, I gradually fell completely under his intense, day after day pursuit. I thought he liked me. That he loved me. So, despite everyone's objections, I agreed to hold the engagement ceremony with Adrian. Speaking of which, my parents loved Adrian more than they loved me. They believed Adrian had the ability, the means. So after I married him, they entrusted all the family's wealth to him. In their words, this was their way of showing me love. So, even in my past life, when I requested a divorce, they naturally rejected me. To them, my happiness didn't matter. What mattered was whether the company was being managed well. I knew, after we married, that it wouldn't be easy to get a divorce. Not just for me, but for the families. So I endured year after year, until in the 6th year, I obtained evidence of Adrian's mismanagement. I presented the evidence to him, threatening him that I would divorce him. But him? Now, in this new life, I would never make the same mistake again. I directly sat in the passenger seat of Daniel's car, casting a playful glance at him. Daniel, can you take me home? Daniel didn't refuse. He started the car, and only when we were near my house did he pass me his phone. I looked at him, puzzled. He spoke, his voice carrying a subtle authority. I'll pick you up tomorrow. We'll go to the Adrian family to discuss the engagement. I quickly entered my number, then handed the phone back to him with a respectful gesture. All set. Daniel. He smoothly parked the car, dialed my number, and only when he heard my phone ring did he open the car door. Go ahead. Call me if you need anything. Okay. I will. I got out of the car, and as soon as I opened the door, I saw my parents each sitting at one corner of the sofa. Neither of them spoke, but there was a heavy, tense air hanging between them. As soon as I entered the living room, my father stood up and began to scold me. You're this old. And still acting so recklessly. Do you know I had to turn down a multi-million-dollar business dinner today just to wait for you? And you, since when did you learn to fly a plane? How come I didn't know about it? In his fury, my father slammed his hand on the table, pointing at me and shouting angrily. Lily was just asking you a few questions at the police station. And you threatened her like that? Where's the sisterly responsibility in that? And you? What's going on between you and Daniel? Don't forget. Before my father could finish his reproach, my mother picked up the vase on the table and hurled it at him. Victor! What do you mean by this? The dastard dares to accuse Grace? You must have forgotten our agreement. Victor turned his anger toward my mother when he saw the broken vase on the floor. Have I violated any agreements? Even with Lily, I still left most of the fortune to Grace. But you had a lull sigh. Seeing their argument escalate, I couldn't bear it any longer. I shouted at the top of my lungs. Enough. Stop shouting. If you want to argue, go do it outside. Both of them froze for a moment, before returning to the same silence they had when I first walked in. Once they quieted down, I sat on the other side of the sofa and spoke directly. I want to cancel the engagement with Adrian. No. Before I could even finish, my father rejected me outright, speaking immediately. The engagement with Adrian's family has been arranged since we were kids. You can't just cancel it over something so trivial. I don't agree. What's there to disagree about? You just want Grace to marry Adrian and take our family fortune. Then have your bastard take over. My mother was furious, pointing at Victor and accusing him. Don't think I don't know. Your bastard has been secretly collaborating with Adrian for ages. I see right through your schemes. Mom. I was shocked, looking at her. She knew. She knew all along. So why was she still pushing me to marry Adrian? She knew everything. So why did she refuse to let me divorce him in my past life? My mother awkwardly spoke up. Who you marry doesn't matter. At least Adrian has the means to manage the company. Did you have someone better in mind? I can support you in breaking off the engagement. I bitterly smiled inside. It was clear. They really didn't love me. So I stood up and spoke firmly. I'm not canceling the engagement with Adrian's family. I want to fulfill the engagement with Daniel. Victor seemed ready to say something. But when he saw my mother's expression, he fell silent. The next day, I had just gotten out of bed when I saw my mother's car parked at the gate. She motioned for me to get in as soon as she saw me. Let's go. I'm taking you to the Adrian family. The car drove on. And by the time we arrived at the Adrian family's estate, Lily had already beaten us there. As soon as she saw me with my mother, she eagerly grabbed Adrian's arm. Her gaze filled with self-satisfaction as she looked at my mother. My mother merely shot her a mocking glance before directly stating the purpose of our visit. Adrian's grandmother liked me. But Adrian's biological mother was still in charge of the family, although she didn't have a say in matters now. However, upon hearing this, Adrian immediately took my hand. You want to break off the engagement with the Adrian family? I withdrew my hand. And before I could speak, Daniel appeared from upstairs and took my hand in his. It's not about breaking the engagement with the Adrian family. It's with you. She is my fiancée now. Adrian stared at our hands, his voice low and filled with disbelief. Why? I let out a soft laugh, meeting his eyes. Why? Don't you know? Your beloved Lily is right there. Perfectly fine beside you. Shouldn't you be happy? Adrian's eyes flashed with panic, followed by shock as he looked at me. He knew it. And I knew it. This was our secret. Seeing this, Adrian's grandmother could only speak helplessly. Grace. This matter is our family's fault. Don't worry. When you and Daniel marry, all the shares under my name will be transferred to both of you. I immediately turned to Adrian's grandmother with a smile. Thank you, Grandma. I'll have someone announce this by 10 a.m. at the latest. With that, Daniel and I left the Adrian family's estate. 7 What I hadn't expected was that Adrian would chase after us. Grace. I can explain everything. The reason I did it back then. I turned and got into Daniel's car, lowering the window and mocking him. You regretted it back then. Now you should cherish her even more. As soon as my words fell, the window slowly rose. And Daniel held my hand. We don't need to say anything more to him. He's not worth it. You're right. I gripped his hand tighter. We spent the whole day in Daniel's house, tangled up in each other. By the next morning, I was preparing to go to work. In my past life, even after I had safely landed, I was still shaken by the experience and failed to secure the ACD project. But Adrian, with no competition, had successfully claimed the project, and eventually doubled his assets from it. This just proved how incredibly valuable the project was. And I couldn't let it slip away this time. While I was busy and running around, Lily came to my company to find me. Grace. Adrian really needs this project. Could you? No. I rejected her outright. In my previous life, I wasn't naive enough to believe that they were truly innocent. If it weren't for me threatening Adrian with evidence, he probably wouldn't have stopped tormenting me. But just when we were about to divorce, he suddenly changed his mind, stabbed me to death, and burned the villa down. He said it was all because of us owing her. But from the beginning, he was the one making the decisions. What does that have to do with me? I didn't want to argue with her anymore, so I had her thrown out. While I worked hard to secure the project, Adrian didn't sit idle. He bombarded me with calls every day. When I blocked one number after another, he even threatened to call the police, which finally forced him to quiet down for a while. 2 months later, after my relentless efforts, I finally secured the A-City project. During the celebration, Daniel and I ended up in a heated moment, and he pinned me to the bed for the whole night. The next morning, I woke up feeling sore all over. Even when I forced myself to go to the office, I had no energy left. Just as I was heading for the office to rest, I saw Adrian kneeling in front of me, holding a bouquet of flowers. Grace, I really know I was wrong. Please forgive me. I didn't want to deal with him. I just wanted to get some sleep in the office. I spoke irritably. If you're sick, go see a doctor. Don't bother me. When I turned to leave, Adrian immediately got up to stop me. In the process, he accidentally pulled my scarf off, revealing a large red mark on my neck. Grace. I quickly snatched the scarf from his hand. Get lost. But Adrian didn't give up. He looked at me with an earnest expression. Grace. I truly regret it. I know I was wrong. If you forgive me, I'll do whatever you want. I sneered and looked down at him, speaking in a voice only the two of us could hear. Regret what? Regret what you did to me in the past life? Don't you know that belated affection is worth less than grass? The color drained from Adrian's face immediately, and he looked like he had seen a ghost. Just as I was about to walk past him toward the office, he dashed in front of me, running to the window. Half of his body was already outside the window. Grace, cutting fulfilled by obsession. If you won't forgive me, I'd rather jump now. I looked at him speechlessly. But before I could respond, Daniel suddenly appeared behind me, taking my hand and pulling me into his arms. It's okay. If you jump now, your mother will be kicked out tomorrow. You. Adrian stared at him in disbelief, seemingly shocked that the usually gentle Daniel would threaten him so directly. With a bitter look, he climbed out of the window, casting one last lingering glance at me, gaze full of reluctance. I didn't pay much attention to it. After all, Daniel and I were soon to start planning our wedding. There was just so much to take care of for the wedding that when I heard news about Adrian again, it felt like it had come from a completely different lifetime. A friend told me that Adrian had been driven abroad by Daniel, asking if I knew about it. I shook my head. Recently, I was swamped with company matters during the day and was dragged into exercising by Daniel every night. I simply didn't have the energy to think about these things. It was through my friend that I learned my father had found yet another true love. This true love had even given him a son. Always inclined toward favoring sons, my father immediately abandoned Lily's mother and married this new love, effectively leaving Lily feeling discarded. In her fury, Lily did not hold back. She took all the money from Adrian's company and fled with her mother abroad. Adrian, with no other options, had to make a deal with Daniel. As long as he took his mother abroad, Daniel would give him enough money to see out the rest of their days comfortably. Adrian, of course, did not refuse. So, he left with his mother. What I didn't expect, however, was that on the day Daniel and I got married, I received the news that Adrian had been imprisoned. Adrian and Lily had a real bond, otherwise they wouldn't have met on a foreign street. When enemies meet, they naturally burn with hatred. In countries where firearms were never prohibited, Adrian shot Lily dead in the street and was promptly arrested by the police. But none of this concerned me anymore. I sat on the sofa, looking up at Daniel, playfully pouting. I'm really tired today. Can I rest for the night? Without a word, Daniel lifted me off the sofa and into his arms. You can lie in bed and rest. I'll take care of everything. Wait. Don't.